More on the developing story this afternoon. The Communications Minister, Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams, having action taken against her by President Cyril Ramaphosa. He has put her on special leave for 2 months. Jackson Mthembu, the Minister in the Presidency, will act as the Minister of Communications in the meantime. She will also lose a month's salary as a result of having that lunch with Mduduzi Manana. Back now to Dr. Sithembile Mbete, the political analyst. Dr. Mbete, good afternoon to you. I was asking you if your memory is better than mine. Has something like this ever happened before?
No, I don't think. Hi, good afternoon, Stephen. I don't think we've actually seen anything like this. The last that I could remember was the case of former President Thabo Mbeki relieving his deputy Jacob Zuma of his duties because of the corruption trial that he was facing at the time. But other than that, we really haven't seen this kind of sanction by a member of cabinet, by the president at the time. Neither have we seen a member of cabinet who's been found of wrongdoing giving the kind of public apology that Minister Ndabeni has been forced to give.
I mean, there's another sort of wrinkle in all of this, in that in the presidency's statement, he says he did put forward some mitigating factors, but he rejected them. I mean, that's quite a strong statement to make, isn't it? He's basically saying that I don't accept that excuse.
Exactly. I mean, there was a lot that was in the president's statement. So firstly saying that he rejects the excuses that she gave or her explanation, but then also saying that the law must take its course. That he indicating that he's not going to do anything to protect her from any of the legal consequences of her actions.
Talk me through the politics of this in the ANC. Unprecedented action. Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams, if I recall, comes from the Eastern Cape, an important constituency for President Ramaphosa. If we sort of go back to the sort of Nazareth way of analysing these things, I realise that might be 2 years out of date. It might not. It's hard to know sometimes. Did he have political room to take any other action, or is this as far as he could go?
Look, I think that, remember that Minister Ndabeni-Abrahams as somebody that is seen as being in President Ramaphosa's camp, so to speak, and somebody that is an ally of his, that's supportive of him. And so this is really him taking quite stern action against one of his own, against somebody that has been on his team, and that by all accounts he has a good personal or, relationship with. And so I think it is significant that this is him taking action not only against somebody that could be considered a political opponent, but somebody that is considered a political ally. And I think it's been an important move for him to take to show that he wants to apply the rules evenly and equally, and that there'll be no individual that will be particularly favored in the application of the rules. And certainly this may have unfortunate consequences for the minister herself, but it certainly strengthens the position of the president and his political side within the ANC.
I suppose one of the problems is that he is the face of the lockdown. If he's not seen to take action against one of his ministers, you can just imagine, especially with Easter coming up, how many people would have, basically just sort of quoted this example at whichever police officer or soldier pulled them over on the side of the road.
Of course, and what we also know is that there have been thousands of people arrested and some detained for violations of the lockdown regulations. And so you couldn't have a situation where different rules were being applied to politicians to what is being applied to the public at large and to the public in general. And so it was important for the president, in order to maintain the legitimacy of his own position, but also the legitimacy of this lockdown, to make sure that the rules are going to be applied equally to all people, regardless of the amount of political access or political power they may hold.
I mean, we've been talking about Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams, and so we should. She is a cabinet minister, albeit not for the next 2 months, I suppose, technically speaking. Mduduzi Manana, I mean, he was removed from the position of Deputy Minister of Higher Education after being seen on video hitting a woman in a parking lot in a nightclub. She's having lunch with him. I mean, there's a conversation there. And I've got to ask you, should the ANC, and I mean, Mduduzi Manana, his mother is Sithembile Manana, if I recall, she was an MEC in Mpumalanga of health at one point, but should his ANC branch be looking at taking some sort of disciplinary action against him for breaking the lockdown regulations?
Certainly. So that is an option for his ANC branch and whatever official ANC institution has oversight over his behavior. They certainly have the option to take action against him. I mean, I think that the action that we're going to see from here, as you guys have already reported, is going to come from whoever is laying a charge. And so the next action is really going to come from the criminal justice system and from the security authorities, so the police, and then, of course, the NPA and whatever magistrate is going to look at this case. And so we've heard already that the EFF is laying a charge at the Douglasdale police station, and so what we'll need to keep a watch on is, and they're laying a charge against both Mduduzi Manana and Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams, and so I guess that's what's going to be what we need to look for and to look at what action is actually taken from there.
There's ancient history between Mduduzi Manana and Julius Malema as well, if I remember correctly. All right, Dr. Sithembile Mbete, really do appreciate it. Thank you, political analyst from the University of Pretoria.